We know hundreds of the hottest companies in AI right now that are hiring. So we recruit for companies like Suno, Graphite, Tenor, Reflection AI. Those are all companies that Fonzi recruits for, including several of the amazing companies that you're going to learn about tonight. And so if you are even thinking about knowing what your market worth is, that's something you can ask our agent. If you want to know what options are out there, I highly recommend sign up for Fonzi. Just shoot it in a text, and we'll get you on board. Tonight's a special founders to follow. There's one through line, and it's that they happen to all be Google Ventures portfolio companies. So let's hear it for our co-host tonight, Google Ventures.
Thanks so much for hosting us. Hi everyone, my name is Crystal Huang. I'm a general partner at GV Google Ventures. We're a venture capital firm that invests Alphabet's capital. We operate as a financial VC, and we are multi-stage, investing across seed all the way up to late-stage pre-IPO companies, investing over $1 billion a year across consumer, enterprise, and life sciences. I'm based in New York. We have an office here. We also have San Francisco, Mountain View, London, and Boston. Everyone who's going to be speaking today is one of our portfolio companies. We're super proud and excited to showcase them. And feel free to come up to me if you have any questions about us or our portcos, but we're super excited to let our founders speak for themselves. Thanks so much, and thanks, Fonzi, for co-hosting with us.
Thank you. Let's hear it for Krista. All right, so enough talk. Let's get into the meat of it. We're going to kick it off with Basis.
Accounting is a very interesting profession. I don't think people understand what it is. And so I'd like to start there. It's the profession of asking the question, what's going on for anyone? Like, are you making money? Are you losing money? Who are you paying? Did you pay them? How are you looking? Is it going to make more money over time? And it actually is just a bunch of random things like that. And they do it for every entity in the world, anywhere from your local bodega all the way to Apple, and for some people, all the way to Elon Musk. And that's just a wide range. It's everything. And everyone wants to know what is going on. And that's the job of these people. And so you can imagine that there's a lot of variation in it. Like if you're going to help a textile manufacturer out in Kansas, there's no book called Accounting for Textile Manufacturers in Kansas. That's not a thing. So you go to them and you go, what do you do? And you learn their business and you go, oh, Brenda's in charge of shipments. Oh, okay, great. One of the accounting things we'll do for you is we'll email Brenda each week and we'll make sure that she got the shipments we're going to pay invoices for. And only when she says so will we pay that out. And that's what we'll do. And as long as you agree, that's accounting. And if another accounting firm shows up, they will do vastly different things because they're just making it up on the spot based on what they hear and based on what they learn. Some things are pretty common, like, hey, make sure you pay your people and make sure you pay your bills. But about 80–90% of it is a bunch of custom stuff that two people agree to, and that's what they call accounting to be. It's very fun in that way. It actually makes building agents for it kind of a nightmare, but that's a separate problem, which is what we're hiring for. Accounting is a labor-intensive job because of its variation. And it's not a very fun job. People don't seem to like it. It's very monotonous. You have to keep doing it in repetition pretty regularly. And so if you do it for like 1 year, it's pretty good. You do that for 10 years, you're pretty sad. And so graduation rates are plummeting on one side, and then about 75% of them are retiring in the next 10 years. So they have a huge labor shortage. They don't have enough people to do this work. Yet it's a really core fundamental element of every business asking itself what is going on. And so it leads to like weird market dynamics and pricing stuff where like the answer to that question gets really expensive and stuff. And so we have a very simple solution. We will become the labor force of missing accountants. That is the thesis. And so Basis has a very simple principle. We will do whatever a person does. We are building an accountant, not accounting software. That is an engineering principle. We can talk about it some more. And it completely changes how you build architecture, infrastructure, how you context, like how you model context, how you build product experiences, UX experiences. All of that changes from that simple idea, which is what would a person do? And if we're not doing it, we should go do that. Right now, we can do like a few thousand things in accounting. We did not hand code all of them. We let the agents figure out how to do them. And we are teaching agents meta behaviors of how to show up into random problems. Because the fun part of our job is you never know what someone's about to ask you to do next. And you just have to kind of do it. That's the engineering challenge in a nutshell. It runs for hours. It does a lot of stuff. Anywhere from, you can give it to like, hey, read these PDFs and enter my payroll reports. To email these people to, hey, can you just do my taxes for my S corporation? And you're like, yeah, our job is to nod our head and say, yes, we will. And we're going to make assumptions, surface them along the way. We're going to ask you questions when we think reasonable questions should be asked. But other than that, we're just going to do it. Things that would take 4 to 6 weeks, it takes about 30 minutes to do. And so it's been a pretty easy sell to firms, honestly. It's not been an issue. We just show up and do a demo, and then we sign them. And so that's not been the problem. The larger problem is just, generally speaking, keeping up with the demand in coming in-house, and then continuing to scale what our agents are capable of doing. We want to do something that it would take someone 3-4 months to do in about 10 hours or so. So trying to keep that going is most of our engineering challenges. Happy to talk about that more in networking if that's helpful. Right now we're an engineering team of about 30. We were, I want to say 14 when we were a $1 billion business, which I'm really proud of. My personal goal is to be a 100% eng org for a $100 billion company. And that also sets a different tone of how you think about problems. Like, what infrastructure would you need? What would you're offsetting 900 people's worth of work to agents. What would you have to explain to them? You'd have to explain them how coding works at Basis, how engineering works, how we think about company strategy, recruiting, how we think about product design token systems, components, and we invest so much energy into teaching our agents so that we don't have to do it. Right now, about 20% of the org spends like almost all their time doing that. We think over time, 70% of the org will be doing that. You're just teaching agents how to work at Basis so that we don't have to work at Basis. It's kind of the thesis at some level. So a lot of our work is deep engineering work, really abstract, really infrastructural. Like, I don't want to do this ever again in my life, and I don't want to do the 10,000 things that kind of look like this ever in my life. What would I have to teach these agents, and what infrastructural components would I have to give it so that it can just figure it out? I don't have to do any of this. And so we're looking for folks who want to join and be one of the 100. A lot of spaces left. Our interview process is very fun for those who've been through it. I don't know if anyone here has been through it. And one of the last things I'll point out is that, when you're building a $100 billion business, there's a million ways to do it. And so one of the ways we do it is we write down our principles. We write down a set of beliefs. These are some of them. Happy to talk about them. But we have beliefs about engineering, decision-making, traits, deployed intelligence. We have hundreds of documents on how we make decisions at the company and how we operate so that we align groups of people into like semi-directional spaces. And that is a style of working that if you like, we will work well together in. So I just want to flag that as well.
Hey everyone, I am Jack O'Hara. I'm the co-founder, CEO of Translucent. We build financial agents that help health systems and medical groups find financial opportunities to keep them in business. So before starting Translucent, I had worked in rural healthcare and medicine, and I was working at a very rural area, and we actually had to close down one of our clinics, which led 50,000 patients without access to care. And I really didn't understand what that meant at the time. And I started getting all these emails from patients saying, like, where am I going to get care now? And it really came back down to us as the executive team had no idea what was going on financially. And this story is not a one-off. Unfortunately, in the US, most of US healthcare is operating at a negative to a 1% margin. It's hard to think of healthcare as a business, but it is. And like any other business, as you do better financially, you open up more centers, you hire more doctors, you see more patients, and access to care is a huge issue in the US and honestly all around the world. And to make the matters even worse, there are 720 health systems and hospitals. They're on the brink of closing in the next 2 years. The average days cash on hand is less than 6 months. If I were up here and told you, hey, our company only had 6 months cash on hand, would you actually join my company? Probably not. And so that is a real problem. However, I did come across a very unique solution that actually made this possible and there's a better way of doing this. And it really came down to assigning a financial analyst to help operators make better financial decisions every day. So at a previous company I worked at, we would assign financial analysts with like kind of private equity and investment banking background, and we trained them on healthcare economics. And when we did that in center, those centers got 1 to 2x better financial returns. And when we did that, we grew significantly as a company, but it wasn't scalable. We were in 16 states. These people were like, this job sucks, I'm leaving after a year. And it is unfortunately a skill set issue. You have to be a great data engineer to be great at financial analysis in healthcare. You have to be great at Excel, and you have to know that business of healthcare runs. And so that's essentially what we've created with our company, is a long form writing agent that acts like the finance team, acts like your internal financial consultant, to find financial opportunities to keep these healthcare businesses afloat. And this is an incredibly hard technical problem to solve. The business of healthcare is incredibly complex. There's a reason that they can't do this, and kind of at the end of the month or the end of the quarter, that's when the finance team is essentially reporting the news to the operations. And so what we do is we actually take the context, like a lot of other companies, would take the context of healthcare to train the agents with SMEs and our customers' context, and then take that data and create a benchmark that actually helps us do better at other customers. See, like, what did actually lead to better financial returns for these customers? Just to give you an example, you've probably been to the doctor's office. Some doctors may say, hey, I don't take patients after 4 p.m. on Tuesdays. The scheduler knows that, the finance team knows that, the operator knows that, but that's in no like data system. That's in no kind of financial system. So we actually work with customers to get that financial context to actually make the agents actually recommend something. Because if they say to that doctor, hey, you have a financial opportunity to improve your schedule on Tuesdays from 4 to 6 p.m., they're like, well, I don't see patients then, right? So as an example, making the moat part of the knowledge layer that the context, that the agents run off of. GV led our Series A, but just to kind of give a few customer anecdotes, we serve customers who are like 100 million in revenue all the way to 10 billion, and they all have the same problem. How do I run my business better? And it's a US, it's an international problem. Here are some customer anecdotes, but one I love is, we serve this rural health system in Colorado, and I talked to the CFO and I said, how does your finance team, do all this work? And he's like, there is no finance team. I just come in early and I stay late. And so there is no one to hire in the middle of Colorado or the middle of Kentucky and all these areas, right? So Translucent's kind of like actually is becoming his autonomous finance team. And the way they talk about our product is, you're giving us like 10 days cash on hand or 9 days cash on each of these things, right? The way they think is like, how do we keep our doors open to serve patients, not so much and reinvest in the community? So last is I'll just leave like a positive vision of the future. If our company is successful, there are healthcare systems in the country who are operating at 10 to 14% margin where they average 1%. But if we just get 5% back, that's 135 billion that doesn't go back to like corporate, buybacks, or it doesn't go back to like big salaries. It goes like directly back to patient care. And what it means is hopefully these 600 rural health systems stay open and they serve those communities. It's like super vital that they do. If you're 3 hours away from care, that is a very high likelihood that you will get sick and even cause more issues to the US health system. 675 million more patient visits. I mean, who in here has like waited for a patient, to see a doctor, and it's like been a pretty terrible experience. And then last is 13,500 new sites of care. And so the positive vision of the future is AI will kind of create this bigger pie that can actually help the financials of these health systems, that then creates more opportunities for more access to care. So happy to answer any questions though.
Cool, so let's get into it. What does Blacksmith do? So Blacksmith is building a cloud for code validation and execution. Those are two very large, exciting categories, so let's kind of peel it back one layer at a time. So code validation, we're living through a pretty crazy time, and all the talks before us kind of re-emphasize that, where the act of writing code itself is becoming cheaper and cheaper. It's almost accessible to anyone who kind of has an idea. And so, roll back 2 years, the pipeline, which was the bottleneck in the pipeline was kind of the generation of code. Where the focus has now shifted is the validation of code, or is the code that these AI agents generating correct? And the age-old statement of intent for whether the code is doing what you want it to do is tests. Tests are more important than ever now. Models are very good at generating tests. And if your CI was running hundreds to thousands of tests through a day, now they're probably running thousands to 10,000 tests. And that kind of falls into this code validation piece that we're building towards. Outside of generating more code, agents are also unlocking various use cases. We just heard 4 or 5 phenomenal companies leveraging agents to unlock different use cases that were just not possible before. All those use cases need an environment to run in. They need sandboxes. They need compute to be able to provide the agents with a closed loop recursive platform where the agent can extract data, build, test, iterate, and kind of loop from there on out. And so Blacksmith is in that business of building that cloud for both of these use cases. I find it easiest to kind of visualize what we do in the form of a pyramid. So there's a few ingredients which are necessary when you're going after building a cloud. At the base layer, which is what I call the execution engine, you have to have computers. You have to have extremely fast performant compute. And so 2.5 years ago when we started, we decided that because we're building CI infrastructure, we actually need complete control over the compute that we're virtualizing over. Because CI is this funny workload which directly impacts the productivity of your engineering team. And so the faster it runs, the faster you ship product. And funnily enough, the few characteristics that make CI extremely performant are extremely fast single-core CPU performance and extremely fast file system I/O. So the two ingredients that are necessary for that is kind of the opposite of what the hyperscalers like AWS and GCP and Azure provide you, which is server-side CPU chips instead of desktop gaming CPUs, and network-backed file systems instead of local NVMe SSD drives. And so we went out and procured several, now thousands of machines, not on the hyperscalers, to kind of form that first compute layer, which is the bare metal computers. The second execution engine portion, which is equally important, is a highly durable, reliant storage primitive. Workloads are ephemeral, but you still need several kind of interactions that require persistent state. So think about CI. When you're running CI, you're running the same damn thing again and again and again and again across all your developers. Every single layer that can be cached should be cached. Think about Bazel caching, container caching, Docker build caching, and then the use cases kind of go on and on. And so the two, kind of the bare metal computers and the storage object block storage primitives are pivotal to kind of forming that base of this pyramid. Once you have those two, you can move to the second layer, which is how do you build a virtualization layer that allows you to spin up on the order of hundreds of millions of micro VMs across this compute pool, because that's effectively the business that we're in. And you can kind of squint and kind of see the similarities between CI infrastructure, which is code validation, and code execution, which is some of the use cases you heard about before, where you just need ephemeral fast environments to be running in. And so those two kind of form the second layer, which I call the virtualization layer. And once you have those, you can kind of then start from first principles building out the top of the pyramid, which is code automation. How do you get developers to merge code faster? And we've just started kind of shipping products in that, but the gamut of products you can build at that peak of the pyramid is vast. You can build integrated security because CI is like prime for supply chain attacks. You can build autonomous agents that overnight QA your systems code by finding regressions in patches being merged into database kind of hot loops, or also click through combinatorial variations of your dashboard to figure out what's breaking because of the commits that have merged in due course of time. So that's kind of the top of the pyramid. Now what's cool about Blacksmith is we own the entire stack. We are a vertically integrated kind of company, so everything from the kernel version running on the bare metal host all the way to obsessing over making the onboarding for customers delightful, we have folks working on that entire stack. And so in some sense, we're in complete control of our destiny at every level of the stack, whether it's eking out 5% more of performance from the file systems that we run, or it's making the integrations for GitHub Actions to run on Blacksmith, 3 clicks. We control that entire stack. And that makes for a very interesting spectrum of problems at the company we're at. So cool, you might be asking, you've told us all this stuff, but like how are things actually going? And things are going really well, just because, as I mentioned, code validation is absolutely exploding. The demand for CI, and CI being such an endemic problem across software companies, is pretty much representative in this graph. We started in Jan 2024. We've kind of seen an exponential increase in the number of tests being run from engineering teams all the way from 50 engineers to like 1,000 engineers. For all the folks who like talking about infrastructure at scale, we're running about 22 million jobs a week. That's several million jobs a day. We have about 3,500 bare metal compute hosts across 4 regions in the country. It's about 130,000 cores or vCPUs. we're projected to end the year closer to 800,000 cores. That's the kind of projections we have in terms of the compute we're going to need. We're managing more than 2 petabytes of storage artifacts, which is the stuff which I mentioned around caching and all that good stuff. So I put this slide in here because a common question which we get is like, so Maru, you're going after the hyperscalers, right? Like you are trying to steal workloads from EC2 instances, you're trying to steal workloads from GCP, and the resounding answer the founders believe in is yes, that is who we're competing against. And I wanted to build some intuition as to why we have a right to win here. CI as a workload and sandboxes as workloads are extremely spiky in their demands. This is an actual customer that runs on us. When there are about 100 engineers, when all of their engineers are pumping code Pacific time, 1 p.m., when all of them are kind of orchestrating their agents, you see the vCPU counts peaking at like 37,000 to 40,000 vCPUs. Good luck trying to find that in US East 1 or US West 1 when you're competing against Anthropic for all this compute. So it kind of doubles down on this philosophy that like the form factor of running these ephemeral workloads in the hyperscalers just does not make sense from first principles. And there's a massive compute shortage that we are on the cusp of or somewhere in the kind of start of. And we're uniquely positioned as one of those companies that has a significantly sized pool of the fastest compute to be able to absorb these peaks at scale. And so we have about 5,000 to 6,000 customers, all kind of seeing similar workload patterns through the day. And for every net new customer that kind of sees these patterns, we don't necessarily have to scale the fleet up that much more, just because the average utilization of the fleet kind of pushes up closer towards the peak, the larger and larger you serve. So we're solving all these interesting kind of fleet capacity, multi-tenancy problems here at Blacksmith. Thankfully, the revenue is going up with the amount of job execution as well. We started kind of Jan 2025 at $500,000 in ARR. We're ending this month at $35 million in ARR. We're Series B unannounced company. Series A was led by GV. Seed was also led by GV, so we have a pretty close relationship with them. And Peak 15 led our Series B. We're kind of doing all of this. I'm going to skip to the last slide because I think it kind of ties this all back together. We're doing this with a very lean team right now. We have 8 engineers, 25 people across New York and San Francisco. We really pride ourselves in bringing the absolute best people we've kind of worked with through our career. So Ayush and I were at Cockroach Labs before this. They have a formidable team over there. We have tried to tempt a lot of them to join over. So we have some early folks from Cockroach Labs. We have some people who obsess over product at Cloudflare who've kind of joined our team. And we have the former tech lead of Google Colossus, which is the file system behind everything you use on a day-to-day basis, kind of building with us. And so it's one of those unique opportunities where the team is so small and the impact you can have is so high that if any of the spectrum of kind of like infrastructure products to like, obsessing over making it one click, even when you're deep in kind of this infrastructure land, interests you, we're here to listen, because this team needs to scale to be able to go after the numbers which we're going after. And so that's kind of what I want to leave you with.